Welcome back, guys, to room 3. I'm your chair for this particular session. My name is Nico Swartz, and I work for ESCOM Expo for Young Scientists as the provincial coordinator in the Free State. So yesterday I heard Dr. De Munsa talking about a very chilly Pretoria. We are expecting a temperature of -9 during the course of the night. So if you want to think about it, we are actually quite colder than Pretoria. Without further ado, we've already utilized a little bit of the time that Chris had. Let me quickly just introduce our speakers. So we've got Dr. Tanja Reinhardt from the Science, Technology and Education Center at the UKZN, or as we affectionately know her as Dr. T. And then we've got from ESCOM Expo for Young Scientists, we've got Chris McCartney. Today's paper that they'll present to us is, let me just open here, Toys from Trash and Using Online Platforms to Prepare Learners for Competitions.
So as you indicated, Tanja and I will be jointly presenting this paper. I will start and then swap over to her. But the general overview is we'll be looking at the sort of challenges with online workshops, and then she will take us through a hands-on activity like we would generally do with a group of learners online. And I will then link it to doing a technology activity if learners wanted to do that for ESCOM Expo. We will also look at a couple of examples of other online workshops and how one could implement various strategies like using videos or pre-recorded demonstrations to integrate with online workshops. We'll also look at a couple of tips and tricks, and we'll wrap up with a question and answer session. So traditionally, we as Expo in particular have been looking at face-to-face interventions when we want to prepare learners for any type of competition, in our case, particularly with the Expo. But obviously, since COVID-19 last year, we've all, I'm sure, had to shift a lot of our interventions to online platforms, both for training as well as for our science fairs. In our case, we've chosen to use the Zoom platform, but obviously there's many other online platforms which could be used to achieve a similar result. And we've had a long-term partnership with STEC at UKZN, where Tanja's been involved with promoting Expo for many years. And we just felt it was a good opportunity to further collaborate and look at how we could develop activities that we could run online. So what we're going to be doing today is largely trying to look at how we can engage with learners, especially younger learners, and make them excited, want to get involved in doing these kinds of things. But in doing so, it does come with quite a few challenges. Obviously, many of you will have already experienced problems with Zoom etiquette, where people might have their microphones on and you're then picking up background noise, people maybe having their cameras on and animals walking in or people doing funny things on that. Learners in particular liking to annotate or doodle on the screen. Becomes more difficult the larger your group size in some cases. People dropping off the things and coming in late. And then it's also with people using pseudonyms, it also does raise a few problems, which I'll address later. And then obviously, many of us experience poor connectivity at various stages. And that really, can dampen the enthusiasm. So I'm now going to hand over to Tanja, where she's going to take us through a simple hands-on activity as though she would be doing this with a group of learners. And remember, this is aimed primarily at younger learners, this particular activity, but we can do it for any age and stage. And we've done similar activities for teachers as well. Over to you, Tanja.
Thanks, Chris, and good afternoon. Oh, sorry, good morning, everybody. I'm already like in afternoon mode, and welcome. And what we usually do here is, or what I've got to show you is usually how I would run this activity. And you can see that Chris is already sharing a slide. So one of the aim is to basically show them the steps up front so that they can basically prepare themselves, so that they know what I'm doing later on. And also, if they want, I can share later on the slides with them so that they can redo the activity. So what you will need is a piece of cardboard, and this is just from an ordinary box, and what a ruler, simple ruler, and a pen. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw on it, and we 7.5 centimeters by 15 centimeters rectangle, and we're going to cut it out. Sorry, Chris, can you just go back, please?
Sorry, Tanja, I wasn't sure whether you were able to.
No, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. No worries, no worries.
My apologies.
No worries.
People could see your thing. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult today. It must be the weather here. So then you take a straw, 8 centimeters, and cut it into 2 pieces of 8 centimeters each. You're going to attach it, and the important part is that you're going to attach it in such a way that they are parallel to each other. So not at a skewed angle, because otherwise your car is going to move into different directions. And then you need a balloon, and we're going to snip off the thick end, the rubber end of the balloon. Thanks for sharing, Chris. And thanks for sharing, Chris.
I'm stopping sharing.
Yeah. Okay. So and I just need to go to speaker view, and you can see I'm currently using my laptop camera. So which is, of course, you cannot see what I'm doing here. So that's why I basically have a second camera that I've already prepared that points directly onto my table. So you can basically see what I'm doing. As you can see, my face is cut off because my face is not very interesting. So the main part is basically to focus on it. So if you ever run online workshops, one of the important things is that you need to lay out your material. Because and you have to spend some time in the preparation. And I've just noticed I didn't spend some time in the preparation, so I forgot my bottle cap, which I just had to dash off just now to fetch it. So getting back, we're drawing a rectangle which is 15 centimeters. So we just mark it here, 15 centimeters. So here we basically introduce one of the first skills to the learners, is to learn how to use a ruler to measure distances. Okay, so then it's going to be 7.5 centimeters. Okay, so we're going to measure, we're going to draw a line. We're going to go up to 7.5 centimeters, 7.5 centimeters, and we're going to draw another line. So we're basically drawing our rectangle, which is not very nice because I'm in a rush. Okay. So here you can see there's my rectangle, 15 centimeters by 7.5 centimeters. So also, if you put it up on a presentation, it reminds you what you basically what you want to do. So if you forget a step, which sometimes happens, is by putting in these step-by-step instructions, it reminds me, oh, okay, so this is what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to cut my board out. There we go. So that's the first step. Go. So there's my board. Now I've got my straw, and now I'm going to measure 8 centimeters. Okay. So 8 centimeters, I'm going to lay it right here on the floor, and I'm going to use my pen to just draw a line. And it sometimes helps if you have, so I'll make a mark, I'm going to cut it. So now I'm going to show you a trick of that you don't have to measure like the next piece. So what you can just simply do, you can simply take your straw and just hold it up against and cut it off at this part here. So you get 2 equal sized straws pieces. So this is where your axis is going to fit through. Okay, so now we want to have it parallel, and we've just learned about mathematics, about, you know, how you use words like parallel and so on in mathematics, but you can use it in your workshop. So parallel means as the same distance from the edges. Okay, so how can we achieve this? We can just measure, let's say, 2 centimeters from one side, 2 centimeters from the other side. Here we go. We're going to draw a line across. Here we go. And now we need some tape. Okay. So when you do this, it is always best to just prepare, and you know that you need a couple of tapes. It's always best to just prepare a couple of, you know, pieces of tape. So I'll just do this. So I have them ready. You can also mention this to the learners so that if they don't have, you know, one of these nice little dispensers for tapes, it is actually easier to just prepare some strips. Otherwise, it takes so long to just peel them off. Okay, so I'm going to place my one straw now on the line so that, and here you can see I'm using actually a camera with autofocus, so I can go closer up so that people can see what is actually happening. So here I've got my line, so I'm going to line it up like this. And a piece of tape. There we go. And another piece of tape. Right. And you can explain if it doesn't work this first time, this is going to be a prototype. So they can always improve it. So then you're going to measure another 2 centimeters from the other side. Or you can just measure it from this straw to make it parallel, but I'm just going to use my straight edge. Okay, we're going to draw another line. Here we go. And now I have my second piece of straw. And of course, one of the problems is when you have background noises, you know, so you just need to make sure that you get rid of all the background noises. I would have to get rid of my husband, that is who's sitting right here next to me. Here we go. I'm going to make sure that it's straight, parallel. And this line, as I said, helps quite a bit. So it doesn't matter what kind of straw you're going to use. If it's a plastic straw, a paper straw, everything will work. Chris, if you can just share the presentation again. Chris?
I'm with you. Sorry, just give me a second.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, so what we also need to do is, here you can still see, we need to snip off the rubber end of the balloon. So here we go. We're going to snip off the thick end of the balloon. Okay, can you just advance to the next slide, please?
Getting there.
Okay, so in the next slide, we're going to continue with our car. So you insert the straw about 5 centimeters, and then you tape the balloon to the straw. And you need to make sure that that it's really tightly sealed. Okay. So then you tape basically the straw with a balloon onto your cardboard piece, and you need to make sure that it's basically in the middle. Okay. So you place the balloon towards the front, so about the center of the base, and then the straw sticks way out at the back, and it needs to be as straight as you can do it, okay? And then you're going to securely tape it in place. Then you use 2 skewers, and you can cut off 10 centimeters from the flat end, not the pointy end, okay? So remember, your skewers have got 2 ends, one flat, one pointy, and you do it again with the other skewer. So these ones are your axes for your car. And you save the pointy. You need to save the pointy bits for, you know, to poke a hole through your wheels. In the next step, we're going to basically do the the wheels. So you need a piece of cardboard, and you just need, you know, a soda bottle cap, and then you're going to trace the outline of your soda bottle cap, four of them, and then you carefully cut them out. Okay, Chris, if you can just stop sharing. Okay, now I need to find the beginning. You see, this is why I said, and it's very funny. This is why I said you need always to be prepared, because otherwise you're going to look for the beginning of your tape. Okay, especially if you have something like this and you can't find the beginning of your tape. This is what usually happens. Oh gosh, sorry guys. It's just, you know, you do this in up front and everything works fine. But I promise you, in your presentation itself, you will find some challenges. Hands-on activities that you've tried out, like way, you know, always beforehand, they work fine. And just if it comes to the crunch, if you do the live workshop, things don't work. So this is why it's live, so that you can really see, you know, we are not faking anything. Nothing is pre-recorded here. Okay, so straw, balloon, we're going to insert it. So you can see that I pushed it quite far in. So this is about that much in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of wrap it tightly around the straw like this. And now I'm going to use a piece of tape and wrap it around. I hope that everybody can follow. Just like this. I'm going up, and if you, this is another thing that you always find with, you know, online workshops, that you have people that are unmuting themselves. Okay, right. So now in the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to tape our straw to the bases. So you can see I've placed it roughly in the middle, and I'm going to use a piece of tape, and I just make it as straight as possible. Okay, and I'm going to place the chassis onto it, hopefully securely. Okay, I'll just probably need a second piece of tape. Go. And we've got this here. Super. All right, so coming back to our little skewer here. So we can measure about 10 centimeters of our skewer. Remember, we are not measuring from the pointy tip. We are measuring from the flat tip. So 10 centimeters. What you also find is that what is quite interesting, and I find this a lot with, you know, when I run proper workshops, so pre-COVID workshops, that the children, they actually have difficulties in, you know, cutting things. So this is another great opportunity to learn them some specific skills, things like cutting out. Right, so here we've got, so we can do the same. If we want to have the same measure and we were too lazy to measure, we can just line them up and cut them through. And if you have, like, oh, or you can just break it off. Here we go. So this is going to be your axis, all right? And we're going to push them through here. So they're going to fit through your straws. Now, in the last step, what we are going to do is we are going to trace our wheel. So again, piece of cardboard. This is just an ordinary bottle cap. And you're going to trace the wheel. Okay, and cut it out. And as you can see, this is material that is not expensive. So maybe the balloons, maybe the skewers, but maybe you can find some other alternatives in terms of skewers and so on. And luckily, I've already prepared all my 4 wheels. So while you're still busy cutting, I can continue and show the others what comes next. So you're going to mark the center of your wheel. Okay, right? So just place it as as much in the center as possible. And then you're going to take the pointy tip and you're going to push it through your wheel, just like this. So that's one. Two. Whoops. Three. And four. So now in the last step, what we're just going to do is we're just going to attach the wheels onto our skewers like this. Okay, so that's one. All right. That is, whoops, number two. Very important is that they need to freely rotate. So just watch out. So again, push in, fits through your axis, sorry, and then you're going to attach the other side. There we go. Okay, and ready is our car. Chris, can you just quickly share the next slide, please?
Sure.
Okay, so question, of course, is in which direction will your car move? So what we're basically going to do is we're going to blow some air into the balloon through the straw at the back, okay? Put our fingers onto the end, okay? And so we're basically filling up with potential energy, and then we're going to let loose. So, and we can start now sharing a poll, and you have to decide in which direction will your car move. If we can please have the poll. So this is another way of how you can engage with the learners by launching a poll. So you can see if people pay attention, if people are bored, if they're already asleep, or if they understand what you want to do. Please, guys, if you see the poll, just click on it. Okay, and we got some responses. Okay, it will. Okay, so we have a close thing. So we have 11 people already responding. So it will move in the direction of the straw. It will move in the direction of the balloon. So we'll just have to see, and I'll just make some space here. Okay, 16. Come on, guys. There are 50 people in the room, and believe me, it is. You know, nobody is going to vouch. You can answer whatever you want. Nobody can point you because it's all with no names and so on. We can just see the numbers, and which is interesting. So we have 20 people. Just give it another minute, 30 seconds. Okay, so 20 people have an opinion. 30 people don't, which is a little bit, oh no, 21. Okay, so 21, 22. Guys, as I said, you can answer the question. So it's fairly close. So 36, well, people think that it's actually moving in the direction of the straw. 64 think that it will move in the direction of the balloon. So basically, you're basically now making a prediction. And this is also what the learners, it's quite interesting to show to learners or other participants, even teachers, and I hope that we still have that we have some teachers here, Okay, I think time's up. So if you can just share the results. So we have, I hope that everybody can see this. So we have 24 people who had an opinion. 33% said it will move in the direction of the straw. And 67 said that it will move in the direction of the balloon. And I'll just stop the sharing. And Chris, if you can just stop sharing your screen and we'll just test it out. So, as I said, you fuel your car. I'm going to put my finger on it and we'll just see how it goes. So people, if you say that it's moving in the direction of the balloon, you are absolutely right. But what you also might have noticed is that the wheels weren't kind of, we're a little bit wobbly. And I know that Chris has got some ideas of how you can improve the wheels and what else you can use to do the wheels. Chris, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, Tanja. I'm just going to share my screen again. Okay, so Tanya's taken us through the process of making a very simple little model. Obviously, because of time, we wanted to choose something that we could do in a short space of time. But the really important thing about this is to initially just get the learners excited and wanting to get involved in doing something. Ideally, when we run these simple workshops, the learners once they've registered, get a list of all the resources that they need so that they can actually follow along and do it themselves. But we can also do this as an introduction to doing a engineering type project, which could be entered into the Eskom Expo. And obviously there they're going to be looking at different things like, the variables. And if we look at, for instance, the wheels as a variable that could be changed, we could look at using different types of materials or resources for making different wheels. So I'm just going to stop this presentation for a second, and I'm just going to switch over to my camera so that I can actually show you what I'm doing. And I just need to start my video here. And I want to, oops, for some reason it's not picking up my other camera now. Sorry, and you said always got a problem when you're doing things live. You've got to make sure you've got the right things working. So I'm also using a dual camera system. And in this case now, I'm wanting to look at my my desktop. And for the life of me, I can't actually see my desktop at the moment, so I'm not sure if anybody else can.
Chris, we can. So you're on, and we can see your prototypes.
Okay, all right. So I'm just trying to get so that I can actually see what's happening. I just want to see. Okay, it's not helping.
So this is also the problem. Sometimes if you have too many cameras and so on, and depending on your setup. So when we usually do this, Nico is usually our host and so on. So we can always look at the cameras, we know the setups and so on. But sometimes in different Zoom spaces, things work differently. So Chris, but we can see your,
No, that's fine. I'm just pinning myself here. Okay, so you can now see my desktop, and all I want to now illustrate to you is how we could look at using different wheel options to improve the car, but also to look at it as a variable that could be changed if doing a simple engineering type project. So Tanja had a little car made of cardboard. I've got mine here, and again, I've also got an autofocus high resolution camera, which I'm using for these kinds of workshops. And instead of using cut out cardboard wheels, I've used simple bottle tops on that one. Okay, now I could, if I like, change the size of the wheels and have a look, does that actually affect how, or the speed that or the distance that the balloon car will travel. For various workshops, we've also looked at using different wheels. For instance, adding attachments like tire chains to wheels, prevent wheels from sliding as much on a slippery road. And for those purposes, we made up little axles with wheels with chains around them. I've made others up using little plastic ties, and we ran a very nice little workshop where we used shallow trays filled with water and then left those to freeze in the fridge or in the freezer overnight, and then used them to look at different angles of slippery roads and how you could now improve the design or add things to your wheels to stop the slide or to improve the grip. Now, a lot of you will also say, but where do we get these resources? As Tanya's already mentioned, we try as far as possible to use readily available resources that you would normally just throw away, and hence the title of the talk, Toys from Trash. So just a couple of other ideas. Instead of just using bottle caps, things that you could also use are cotton reels. Cotton reels make really nice wheels. And yeah, I've just put them on a small piece of dowel, but you could attach them solidly and then put an axle through if you wanted to. Yeah, I've used some offcuts of electrician's tubing, and I've just put a cork down the center to which I can push my dowel in or my skewer in, and those make really nice wheels as well. You could also cut little wooden wheels if you've got a hole saw, or if you don't have that, then you can just take a dowel and you can just cut off sections of different size dowels if you want to do that. You can even use large buttons. So a large button like that actually works really well as a wheel. And lastly, for the purpose, actually two more I'm going to show you. This is just a little from a bobbin from a sewing machine. Whoops, dropped it. And those as well you can use with different size little dowels. You can see it clearly there. And these little bobbins also work really well as small pulleys if you want to do make up pulleys for mechanical advantage. And then lastly, I'm going to show you one that I've made up out of old CDs, or you use DVDs. And yeah, I've used a bottle cap from a cool drink bottle, which I've glued to the center, and then again just inserted my skewer stick. And these are really nice for illustrating different variables. So as we've already said, you can look at an engineering type project where a learner could do the basic prototype, just like Tanya's already indicated, and then they could look at setting different criteria that they want to meet, that the car needs to meet. And they could also do a scientific investigation looking at, for instance, different types of wheels as a variable that they change in, or they keep the same size or type of wheel and they look at maybe inflating the balloon to different amounts, or using different types of balloons. So there's a whole lot of things that learners could do to do a very basic, simple experiment. And as we've said before, we want to get as many learners as possible across the spectrum to be involved in doing competitions and entering Expo. And when they first start out, it's not necessary that they do these huge, complicated investigations, but they can start with very simple little activities, and these can be built on over time, and you can always integrate these. And these are also ideal ways of getting learners excited about getting involved in online activities, but you could also do them face-to-face. So I'm now going to hand back over to Tanja, where she's just going to share maybe a couple of ideas for other activities that could be done as well.
Thanks, Chris. And yes, there are some ideas that I would like to share. And Chris, yeah, okay.
I'm getting there.
Okay, here we go. So what you can see is I want to demonstrate some other ideas, and my speciality is like kind of kitchen chemistry. Those things that you have lying around in your house that you might find in your kitchen. And Chris, if you can just stop sharing, and I can just show them two of the things that that they can do. So this is something very simple, just a CD, some press sticks, and this is one of these fancy bottle caps that you find on your sports drink. You can also use just a normal bottle cap with a hole in there, where you poke a hole in, and then you put a balloon over. So what you can do is now you can demonstrate things like friction. So as you can see, this one is hardly moving, but if you're going to blow it up, the balloon, you can basically see, and I hope that you could see, and now this is when the technology kind of so you can close it. This is why I prefer the Gatorade one, and then you open it and you can see that it's now moving fairly easy. So you can basically get an investigation on which surface, in fact, this kind of concept works. How does it reduce friction? So you can talk about lots of physical properties of this. And another very simple thing is acid and bases. So what I've got here is just simple red tea that are just brewed up. You can use also grape juice, so blue grape juice and so on. So what I've got here is just simple acid, okay? I use a straw. You can use a pipette, but a straw is usually readily available. So you dunk it in, you put your finger on it, you move it across, and you can kind of let loose and you transfer it just like a pipette. So you don't have to use fancy pipettes. You can use a straw. You can see that the color slightly changed, but not really that much. So let's see, I've got some washing powder in here, which is supposed to be a base. Let's see what's going to happen when we add now our red juice. And you can see that it's got this nice blue color, bluish green color. And again, it's a very simple way to teach just what is an acid, what is a base, how can we determine it, using very, very simple household material. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload a document with some other ideas, which you can download. So it's a PDF file, which shows you some of the costs. Unfortunately, the costs were in 2018, so I hope that it hasn't changed much. So just to give you some ideas, things that you can do in your classroom, things that you can also do online and share it with other kids. And I'm going to hand back to Chris.
Great stuff. Thank you. So really all we've got left to do for this presentation now is just to have a look at a couple of tips and tricks that Tanja and I and our colleagues have picked up when doing these kinds of workshops. Obviously, you've already seen that we've been using multiple cameras when working with this, because this does allow you to have two different views of what you're doing. And it really is worthwhile investing in a high resolution webcam, which you can use for these kinds of activities as well. You've got to be careful of things like not only background sounds if people are unmuted, but also should you have someone working, for instance, with a sound system in the background or using an external microphone, sometimes you're picking up feedback from these, so just be careful of that. Something we only picked up today was when I tried to set up my virtual background, which we were asked as presenters to use. A virtual background doesn't work with your desktop. It's fine for a speaker view, but when it comes to trying to do a live demonstration of stuff, you certainly can't use a virtual background for that. And then where you've got complicated things, or maybe where you've got something that you've set up beforehand and you want to be able to show it to save time, it's really worthwhile pre-recording videos of your experiments. This also serves as a backup. So should for whatever reason your experiment not want to work on the day, and Tanya's already indicated that it's sod's law, very often when you want to do something live for whatever reason it doesn't want to work, then at least you've got it as a backup. Another activity but that we haven't demonstrated here is to use breakout rooms. And Zoom is really nice for that, where if you've got, for instance, as an example, participants at different levels, you might want to put the learners into one breakout room and maybe the adults or teachers into a different breakout room, and then come together again in your main room or a plenary session. It's also worthwhile engaging the learners or your participants by using polls. And normally we would run a number of different polls looking at the answers to questions or different activities. And then it's also very worthwhile to obviously register your learners beforehand, or your participants. Nowadays with the POPI Act, we've got to be careful in terms of getting permission from people to actually have them register. But the problem with the Zoom registration forms, although it's very simple to use, you can only indicate a required field, but unfortunately you can't have data validation like you would do if you had set it up in a Excel spreadsheet, for instance, where you could have only prescribed data being entered. So sometimes people do enter the wrong information in these forms, but it's still worthwhile exercise to do. And then really, if you're working with large groups, it really does pay to have a co-host or a host to assist managing the large group, especially if you've set up a waiting room and you need someone to monitor that as people maybe drop off and wanting to come back in, or people who join the session late. And then it's also worthwhile, if you're in an area where you've got poor connectivity, to have a backup internet connection, or have someone else, your co-host, who has got your copy of your presentation that can carry on with it while you're trying to resolve your connection problem. But it's often worthwhile just investing in a small uninterrupted power supply to ensure that you've got power to run these if you can. And then obviously you need to just consider the roles of the presenter and the host, who's going to be running the polls, who's going to be doing, whatever. So thank you very much. I think we spot on our time. Thank you very, very much for coming to this presentation. And I'll hand back over to Nico for the Q&A session.
Thanks so much, Dr. T and Chris. Yes, you are well in time, so that allows us a little bit of interaction from the participants. So if you have any questions.
Sorry. If I can just chime in, if you're interested to see how I've done, so as Chris mentioned, it is sometimes quite important, especially if you do like a complicated experiment, to pre-record it. So there are different ways, and I know that Steve knows all the ways of how to do this. So he's a real, gadget buff. So you can use things like your webcam. You can use different programs to basically screen capture it. If you want, if there's still time, I would quite like to share one of my experiments that I've done, pre-recorded experiments, if that is okay.
Yes, Dr. T, we've got a few minutes.
Okay, super. Let me just share, and I hope that's going to work. No slideshow. I don't know why there's, here we go. So this is basically just your simple vinegar and bicarbonate experiment. And basically what this demonstration shows are two ways. So one way is the classical, how do we know that there's pressure building up inside your bottle? So you can use a bottle and a cork. And I've pre-recorded this. So you drop your bicarbonate in, you put a cork on, and you wait for a while, and it should go pop eventually. Yeah, that was okay. So here you can see it flying. So this would be your low-key kind of thing. And what we also have in the Science Center is a pressure sensor. So what I basically have here is so I could basically also then demonstrate how to use a pressure sensor. So again, if you pre-record it, especially if an experiment is over time, it is actually advisable to pre-record and then just cut it in bits and pieces. Okay, so, and I know that there are questions.
Yeah, the chat is blowing up. I haven't seen many questions as yet. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, or if you rather want to pose it directly to the presenters, you can just indicate by raising your hand, and I'll give you the floor.
Nick, I see Steve has got his hand raised.
Yes, please go, Steve.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Chris and Tanja. It's always nice to see, and I'm not going to say old friends, young friends, always presenting on topics that I think are absolutely critical in the classroom. Just a couple of pointers. Chris, you can use a background screen. The problem is that you've got a blended black background. So what I would do is hang a sheet that is a uniform color, usually one that's unusual, like a green screen. And then when you put the background on under settings, you can choose that you've got a green screen, but you can also choose what color it is. So it might not be green per se, it might be blue, but then you must just make sure that whatever colors you are wearing and whatever device you are demonstrating do not have similar coloring to the green screen behind you. So because I've got a green screen, you're not going to see me blending in with the background. And if I hold up an object and bring it in front of the camera, it's not going to blend with the background, because the background knows that the green screen is what it needs to set it at and not anything else. So that's definitely worth noting. If you are doing lots of presentations online, I would definitely hang a towel or a sheet behind you. If, for example, you're like Tanja and you've got curtains behind you where there's light coming through, then obviously that will confuse the virtual background. And Chris has got a cupboard and a red brick wall and a few different objects, so obviously it's going to get confused. But if you've got one solid background, no problem.
If I can just come in there for a minute, I do
Yes.
appreciate that. And for this presenter view, that's fine. It works perfectly. I did have mine set up beforehand like that. The challenge comes in when you swap in cameras and you use two cameras, because you can't have two different backgrounds on your setting. And as soon as you want to show an actual work surface,
I have a solution.
Different things, then you've got a challenge.
Part two of what I was going to say is that I'm not going to use a document cam. I'm going to use one of these fancy things called a cell phone. And what I do is I sign into the Zoom call with my cell phone. And my cell phone is given co-hosting rights. And then what I do is I place the cell phone on some sort of device that I've built. Maybe it's a couple of Rubik's cubes that I've planted, or a few books, and it holds it up in place. And then all I do is I go onto my cell phone Zoom and I click on share screen. And then whatever comes through the cell phone camera appears on the screen. And that way, I don't have to worry about a background on my cell phone, because it's a separate caller as opposed to the same person. And I never have any issues. So that I find that's very useful when you're doing demonstrations. And the camera on a cell phone is incredibly high resolution. So I find that quite beneficial.
Thanks for that, Steve. I think that's a very useful tip, and we'll certainly try that. It's one more thing to try and work on. I think it's really worthwhile exploring and looking at. So thanks for that.
I don't know if anybody else has experience with online workshops. So for us, it was basically been thrown in the deep end since the beginning of last year. And for us, it was like, we try out different things. So what I usually also do is I basically there is a camera app on your laptop as well, so you can share your camera app, and then you also don't have problems with the background. So this is another possibility. So if you don't want to operate with multiple users, if you want to use your own one, this is also what you can do. So you share your camera app screen, so just like you would share your PowerPoint presentation and so on. And the problem that I had with previously was if you are low on memory, that is then your screen is going to freeze. Okay, so you have huge problems. So if you have a very powerful computer, laptop, and so on, and you basically have enough space, then you can also basically use your camera app on your laptop.
Thanks guys for the interaction. Any other questions?
If I can throw another question quickly. Sorry. What do you do when Eskom decides to have power cuts and you are in the middle of presentations? How do you get around that? Do you have a plan B? What is your strategy?
Thanks, Steve. Yes, as I already mentioned briefly, the plan B is to ensure that your co-host has also got a copy of your presentation, and that they at least reasonably okay with it, so that they can take over. And we have had situations where we've had to do that. in my case, I've worked off a laptop which has got a reasonable battery that works for a while, but the cell phone is an option as a hotspot. And I've also got a UPS on my server, but you know, those are all things that not everybody might have, but certainly using your cell phone as a hotspot or to dial in on often works best when power goes off completely. Tanja, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so I usually have like a little portable dongle that I can put on, you know, a small external battery, you know, these power packs and so on for cell phones. So I basically make sure that when I do my presentation, that I have basically two possibilities for internet connection. So one is my main internet connection, and the other one I'll basically use as a backup. So, and it works, but to be on the safe side, it's always best to have like a co-host so that they can basically chime in when things go pear-shaped.